Jamie is paid $12.50 per hour for a regular 40-hour week. Overtime hours are paid at time and a half. The chart below is a record of the hours Jamie worked last week. And so on Monday, she worked 8 hours. On Tuesday, she worked 8 hours. On Wednesday, she worked 9 hours. On Thursday, she worked 9 hours. And on Friday, she worked 10 hours. And so the question asks us, calculate the regular earnings. And so in order to figure out her regular earnings, what we're going to do is we're going to take how much she is paid hourly, which is $12.50. And we're going to multiply it by 40 because that's her regular 40-hour work week. That's how many hours she works for a regular 40-hour work week. So she works 40 hours. And so her regular earnings without overtime is going to be $12.50 multiplied by 40, which is going to give us 500. And so that means that our regular earnings is $500. Next, the question states, calculate the overtime hours worked. Now, in order for us to determine the overtime hours worked for this week, we have to add up all of these numbers, right? We're going to add up all of these numbers, and then we're going to subtract it from 40, all right? Because 40 is going to be how much she worked regularly. That's 40 is going to be like her regular, the number of hours that she worked regularly without overtime. And so we're going to, in order to calculate the overtime hours, we first add up the hours that she have for the week. So we have 8 plus 8 plus 9 plus 9 plus 10. And we're going to subtract, we add up all of these numbers and then subtract it with 40. And so we have 44 hours minus 40, and 44 hours minus 40 is going to be 4 hours. So in total for this week, she worked a total of 44 hours, but we have to subtract it from 40. And so that means that the number of hours that she worked for overtime is going to be 4 hours. And so her overtime hours is 4 hours. Next, it says calculate the overtime earnings. Calculate the overtime earnings. Now, in order for us to figure out her overtime earnings, what we're going to do is we're going to determine how much she is paid for 1 hour of overtime worked. Now, 1 hour of overtime, notice that they said that overtime hours are paid at time and a half. And so that means that we have to take her hourly rate and we have to multiply it by 1.5 because they say time and a half, right? So we have to multiply it by 1.5. And so we have 1250 multiplied by 1.5. And 1250 multiplied by 1.5 is going to be $18.75. And so that means that for 1 hour of overtime, she gets $18.75. But for this week, she worked 4 hours of overtime. And so that means that her overtime pay is going to be 4 times $18.75. And that's going to be $75. And so that means that her overtime pay is $75, right? So that's how much she's paid for overtime. Next, the question asks us to determine, or to calculate rather, the total earnings for the week. So in order for us to determine her total earnings for the week, we have to add up her regular earnings plus overtime pay. And so total earnings for the week is going to be equal to regular pay plus overtime pay. Regular pay is $500 plus overtime pay, that's going to be $75. We add them together, we get $575. And so that means that her total earnings for the week is $575. Next, the question says that Jamie's national insurance contribution is 3.8% of his total earnings. I keep on saying her, but this is actually a male. And so I'm supposed to be saying his. So it says calculate his national insurance contribution for the week. And so in order for us to determine that, we're going to say 3.8% multiplied by 575. We're going to represent this percent as a fraction. So it's going to be 3.8 divided by 100 multiplied by 575 over 1. We're going to multiply 3.8 by 575, and we're going to multiply 100 by 1. And so that's going to be 3.8 times 575. That's going to be 2,185 all over 100. And so when we divide these two numbers, we get $21.85. So that means that his national insurance contribution is $21.85. Next, it says that we want to calculate his net earnings. Calculate his net earnings. So his net earnings is going to be the amount that he has left after he pays the national insurance contribution. So remember, his total earnings is $575, and we subtract that with $21.85. When we subtract them, we get $553.15. And so that means that his net earnings is $553.15.